On this episode of the Neutral Wisdom podcast, host Robert Shirley discusses social media and parasocial relationships and is joined by his daughter, L'il Wiz. This is the Neutral Wisdom podcast, a podcast dedicated to passing on knowledge and experience from a satanic perspective, with your host, Robert Shirley.
Greetings and welcome to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Shirley, and I'm both excited and terrified for today's topic and guest. Today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships, and I'll be joined later by the one and only L'il Wiz. I suppose you could say I've known L'il Wiz for about 19 years or so. She's 19. And in that time, I've gotten to realize how old and lame I really am when viewed through her eyes. Although I've always taken great delight in tormenting her when she was younger, it was a huge heartbreak to be told that I can't dance. Hey, nobody flosses like a kid here, or that my dad jokes aren't funny. But I've also gotten to watch her grow up and experience things neither I nor my generation ever had. This kid has always had DVDs and a DVD player. No Be Kind Rewind for her, and you oldsters will get that reference, I'm sure. Telephones never had a cord or a party line. She always had a remote control, and she's always had the internet. While that's been an adjustment for us Gen Xers, we had to get used to it, L'il Wiz is an internet and social media, whiz. She lives on her phone and is in tune with everything going on in the world today. Of course, since most of her information comes from said internet, we of the more advanced age know that it must be taken with a grain of salt. But she's also very interested in social media trends and platforms, especially YouTube and TikTok. In fact, she's interested to the point where she wrote a very interesting essay for one of her class finals and got an A+, so proud dad here. The essay was about internet celebrities and the pseudo-relationships which can form between content creators and followers. I'm not overly interested in celebrities, but I did find that her subject matter did encompass a broader scope, especially in terms of the online world. I think that on some level, we all form relationships with people we meet online. Whether in a forum or a chat, a social media community, or an online relationship, we're creating a relationship with a person we are actually creating in our own minds. Also, take into account that we might only be getting the social media view of a person and not have any true idea as to what the person is like in real life. Today's essay explores the concept of parasocial relationships and why this doesn't really jive with Satanism. L'il Wiz will be on after the break to discuss this further with a much more knowledgeable view than I have. Today's essay is titled, Y'all Don't Know Me, Satanism and Parasocial Relationships. I've stated on many occasions that I'm old and do not understand some of the current trends today, especially with social media. But I find that to be a necessary evil, the best way to promote any of my work or projects instantly to a large community. My daughter, L'il Wiz, is 19 years old and most definitely a project of her Gen Z generation. She lives on social media. I might name all the platforms she's on, but to be honest, I've lost track. She even has a Facebook account, which is shocking because, and I quote, Facebook is for old people like you, Dad. Through this use of social media, she's come to admire certain personalities she sees online. She's bought their overpriced merchandise, paid for some of their exclusive content, and even gone so far as to travel halfway across the country to see some of her favorites in a live setting. She even talks about those she admires as though she has close personal relationships with them, like they're friends in real life. However, L'il Wiz recognizes that this is not the case, and she is a fan of these online personalities. In addition, she studied this trend and wrote her academic writing final on the subject of parasocial relationships. L'il Wiz's paper focuses more on the parasocial relationships that content creators have with their audience and vice versa. I thought this was a fascinating subject because I see it more as applying to the online friendships people are apt to form these days, all without knowing the real person. So what is a parasocial relationship? To quote L'il Wiz, parasocial relationships happen when a person feels as if they know someone who does not know them. Parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where individuals feel a connection with media figures, like celebrities, fictional characters, or influencers. Makes sense. I suppose we're all guilty of that in some way or another. We all had our favorite movie stars or rock bands when we were growing up, but the main difference between how my generation did it and how hers does it is the use of technology and the unprecedented access to those she admires. For example, when I was a kid, I worshipped comedian Steve Martin. I endlessly watched all of his movies and stand-up comedy where I could and drove everyone around me crazy with quotes from 1979's The Jerk and 1983's The Man with Two Brains. Seriously, ask me to sing King Tut for you sometime. But if I wanted to let Steve Martin know how I felt about him, I had to write a letter. That's right, I had to take a pen and scratch out words on a piece of paper, then actually pay money to mail it to a generic fan mail address for Steve Martin. In about 6 to 8 months or so, if I was lucky, I might get a form letter back from his people, complete with signature, although maybe not his. And that's where it about ended, at least back then. I mean, if I were really obsessive, I would travel to see him perform wherever he was playing and give up some real creepy stalker vibes. It would be a parasocial relationship of a sort. I would be an ardent fan, and Steve Martin wouldn't know I exist. These days, we have internet celebrities, people who make content and distribute it to the masses via social media. They rely on interaction with their followers and fans and use this as part of their branding. The parasocial relationship in this case goes both ways. The followers feel a connection to the content creator. The content creator feels an obligation to their followers. However, this relationship is potentially very tricky since the content creator's reputation relies heavily on how they interact with their followers. Say one stupid thing or release one bad video, and the content creator's world crumbles. Generally speaking, we all, at least in my age group, have Facebook friends. Sometimes these are people we used to know, such as old school acquaintances. Sometimes they're ex-relationships. Sometimes we meet people in an online forum or community and add them to our friends list. Some people add random contacts just to boost their friend count. I think by now most of us have culled down our lists to people we know at this point. I have anyway. But what about those people we know on social media? Are we guilty of parasocial relationships in that case? I think the potential is definitely there. This instant access to anyone these days can lead to a parasocial relationship. We're able to reach out at random to almost anyone's DMs and speak with them directly. But do we actually know the people on our friends list? Or are we accepting the image they portray and then projecting onto them what we think they should be like if and when we finally meet them? So why are parasocial relationships somewhat antithetical to Satanism? One only needs to look to Satanic canon for the guidelines. Satanic statement number 3. Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. The satanic sin of solipsism and the satanic sin of self-deceit. For satanic statement number 3, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. The Satanist must understand that those on social media are not real friends, at least not in the traditional sense. It's fine to get along with someone in the virtual world, but what happens when you get together with the person and you find, for example, that their personal hygiene leaves a lot to be desired? What if you discover that the person is unable to sustain a real in-person discussion and that their responses online are all measured and edited? Would you want to be stuck in an isolated mountain cabin with this person based simply on what you know from them online? In my experience, some of those I know online and from Zoom calls are people I absolutely cannot stand in real life. Real life exposes all those things which computer cameras and limited exposure conceal. And that is entirely my own fault. I believed what I was being sold and expected such from the people when I met them. Self-deceit? Yes. Solipsistic? Well, let's look at the next point, shall we? The satanic sin of solipsism. As Satanists, we must not expect that other people will share our viewpoints or opinions, or will behave in a certain way. We must not project our own expectations onto others because we will inevitably be disappointed. Have you ever heard the phrase, "never meet your heroes"? The original French quote from Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert in 1856 is, "Il ne faut pas toucher aux idoles, la dorure en reste aux mains." One must not touch idols, the gilding remains on one's hands. I think this phrase is appropriate to today's online relationships as well. Never Meet Your Heroes suggests that meeting someone you admire can lead to disappointment because their true nature might not align with the perfect image you've created in your mind. This usually happens because people tend to idealize their idols, and the reality may fall short of those high expectations. As I mentioned in the previous point, I expected a certain standard of behavior from online people I met in real life. When that didn't turn out to be the case, not only was I disappointed, but I was also pretty angry. Firstly, I felt betrayed, like I had been sold a bogus bill of goods. Second, I was angry with myself for being solipsistic. My bad. I should have remembered that I should not hold others to the same standards to which I hold myself. I must let them show me who and what they are. Solipsism is a sin because Satanists should know better. The satanic sin of self-deceit. Self-deceit is lying to yourself when you can clearly see the truth. That's a pretty basic way of looking at it, but that's what makes the most sense to me. For example, if you know you have an addiction but believe you are a functioning addict or that your addiction is under control, self-deceit. If you have clear evidence that your partner is cheating but choose to look the other way, self-deceit. And if you believe that your online friends are going to be the same in real life as they are online, do I really need to say it again? From a greater perspective, I find the whole parasocial relationship dynamic to be one of solipsism and self-deceit. As Satanists, we must give people a chance to show who they are and accept responsibility for the way we handle that. Robert Shirley in real life. Well, this certainly is an interesting part of this essay. I don't hide the fact that I write and post to social media under a pseudonym because A, my real name is boring, and B, although my professional life wouldn't really be at risk, better safe than sorry. But is Robert Shirley the same person online and in writing that he is in real life? You're goddamn right I am. I'm the same outspoken, witty, opinionated asshole in person as I am on these pages or on the Neutral Wisdom podcast. I've always stated that with me, what you see is what you get. I don't put on airs for anybody. I don't behave differently with different people. I would say I'm fairly consistent whether one likes it or not. Of course, I do use lesser magic in context, but that's another topic. Can you engage in a parasocial relationship with me? Well, should we ever get the chance to meet in real life, I promise you that I will be exactly what you expect, whatever that happens to be in your own mind. It's up to you as to how to take it. Let's pause here. When we come back, we're joined by 19-year-old social media maven L'il Wiz for some interesting insight on parasocial relationships. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Neutral Wisdom podcast. For comments, questions, or suggestions, email us at information@neutralwisdom.ca.
Satansplain. Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Listen to Satansplain. Learn more at satansplain.com.
And welcome back to the Neutral Wisdom podcast. Our guest today is a third-year university student where she is majoring in communications and theater, which means she is never going to leave my house. In her work life, she's a local bartender who loves customer service. Okay, I lied. She's just like me and hates everybody. I am both excited and nervous to have a real conversation with the one, the only, since she has no siblings, the gregarious L'il Wiz. Welcome to my show. I know you don't really listen to it, so this is going to be new for everybody, but I'm glad to have you here today.
Hi, Dad. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I've heard bits and pieces of it, not gonna lie, you know.
Oh, we're going with Dad. Oh, we're going with Dad on this. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So it's going to be familiar and uncomfortable for everybody who listens.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so this is really awkward, mostly for me, but for the benefit of the listening audience out there, tell us all about you. And again, are you a Satanist? Like, I know you have the books since I gave them to you, but what is your actual belief system? What do you actually practice?
Okay, well, hello everyone. I've been given the name Little Wiz, so that's who I am. In terms of whether or not I'm a Satanist, I'm a little bit uncomfortable claiming to be something myself that I have not practiced. I have read the Satanic Bible, and I found myself agreeing with a lot of the stuff in it, the opinions and information in it, but I don't see myself being an avid practitioner enough to really claim that for myself.
Okay, but you do some pretty crazy stuff anyway. Like, I know you put rocks in water and leave them outside, or there's that plant you left in the basement for so long it turned into green goo. So what is your actual belief, or are you just a mismatch of everything these days?
I could consider myself a mishmash of everything. My practices, I kind of take here and there things I find spiritual. I take what connects with me and then I apply it to my life as I go. Like I've made little spell bags for friends for their birthdays for luck, or I have certain rituals I incorporate into my routine before tests or exams, and it's just little things like that that I implement slowly throughout my life. I don't really have a specific practice that I do on the daily. It's just doing things when they come to me, when I want to, when I feel they're necessary.
Well, that
Yeah.
sounds really individual. I mean, that's a good way to do it, right? If you don't want to put a label on you, which is kind of the thing that Ms. Wiz and I have been nailing you with your whole life, is that we don't like the term or the use of labels. I like the fact that you just do whatever you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah, I find it's better for me to not have something rigid in terms of spirituality because there's just so much out there. And in my opinion, I find it very limiting to just call yourself one thing or another. So while I find myself agreeing with a lot of the stuff in the Satanic Bible, there's a lot I see in other practices that I feel more connected to in my life, stuff I can do naturally rather than feel like I have to do things because this label says I should.
Okay. No, that's fair. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. So let's just dive right in here because if we don't, you and I are going to have one of those awkward daddy-daughter conversations we have at the dinner table, which never ends well. But we tend to talk about this kind of stuff, your generation, my generation. We talk about this a lot. You know, we've talked about this before, and now here we are. We're going to put it on public record. So at school, you're taking a double major. Yeah, so
Double major with honors.
communications and theater. So, to what extent does social media play into your chosen fields? Does social media influence your subject matter? And wow, that's a loaded question because I am not going to get into this big AI debate with you. We could touch on it, but I don't want to get into this huge AI thing. So what extent does social media play into the work that you're choosing to go into right now?
Well, for theater, social media plays a lot into, getting word out about shows and getting yourself known as an actor with like companies and other people in your circle. I've met a lot of my actor friends. We follow each other on social media, and it's just a great way to stay connected, to hear about opportunities and projects and to be involved. My communications major, it's pretty much exactly what I'm going to school for. I have always been fascinated with pop culture and digital media and advertising and PR. So I like to set all of my classes, all the ones that I'm taking, on that focus. Social media. What is it? Why do we react to it the way it is? So in all aspects of that degree, that is really what I'm zeroing in on. It's fascinating the way we use it now compared to how we used it 10 years ago. So in terms of that major, it is like right on the point with it.
So why does my social media suck then? What am I doing wrong? Why don't I have a jillion followers?
That is actually a very interesting question. Starting now versus the people who have already made the names for themselves in the industry being, YouTube, Instagram, is that it's such a different playing field, when it started, it was not for profit. It was a silly little thing people were doing. No one ever thought it could go anywhere. And now all of these people doing amazing projects, off of social media, even they've expanded from that. people who are starting out now, it's a lot more difficult because originally it was just natural. It was a consequence of people just tuning into this new technology. For you, I mean, it was a good idea to get Facebook back. That was a really great start, you know? And I think you're doing pretty good now from what I've been watching, you know?
Well, I took some advice from you. Okay, so I like kind of where you went with that by saying it started out as a not-for-profit thing and now people are building careers off it. So what about guys like Logan Paul and Jake Paul who actually used social media to get started in the careers that they have? Is this a normal thing for social media personalities?
Yes. So the Paul brothers are very interesting because yes, they did start on social media, but they're also actors. They did like Disney Channel and they did commercials and movies. So they kind of started as kids and then went on from there. But for people like there's this YouTuber, Markiplier, he just put out a full-length feature film. It was the number one movie in the US, like almost upon release. What it was then is not what it is now. It was a really, no one knew how great of a place it would be to start just getting yourself out there with yourself and your personality. And when people figured out that, oh, I can use these mediums to launch other projects I want to do, like if I'm an actor, people already love me, I'm in a movie, everyone will go see the movie. So it's unique in that way, and it still works like that today, but it was pure, if that makes any sense. You know, back then there was almost no ulterior motivations for it.
So does that speak to your instant gratification? Like I like to tease you about being Gen Z, you want things to happen right now. So in the article that I wrote for this show, I talked about how we used to have to write letters to people. If we wanted to join a fan club, we had to write a letter and send it into the fan club. And right now it's just instant. So is the rise of social media, does that tie in, do you think, to its target demographic? Are you its target demographic right now?
Oh, I 100% am its target demographic. With the rise of social media, it is for sure a lot faster and so much easier. You know, when you talk about sending letters, originally you have to know where you're sending them to, right? But some of the biggest fandoms, they just start picking up people because, oh, something from this fandom ended up on a random person search bar. They click on it, suddenly they're immediately into it. Like there's almost, it's not there and then it is, and suddenly you're in this world of people who like this thing, so you watch the thing or you interact with the thing and now you love the thing and then you show it to your friends, and it's a lot faster than it was with the letters like you mentioned.
Okay, and there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down then, is what you're saying.
So many rabbit holes, yeah.
Okay, well, speaking of rabbit holes, I mean, you're a big fan of some social media personalities. I have no idea who because I try not to pay attention, but who do you like and follow on social media right now?
Some of my favorites, I've been following them for a decade almost now, but you know, it's kind of the OGs of YouTube, like Dan and Phil, Markiplier, as I mentioned. I was a big Thomas Sanders fan. I'm a big fan of the animation community on YouTube. People like Jaden Animations, The Odd Ones Out, Let Me Explain Studios. I could 100% keep going. This list is so long, but I really gravitate and always have gravitated to people who've been here for a really long time. Like one of my other favorite ones, the game theory people, like game theory, film theory, that whole company. I started watching them, the first time I got a phone, the first time I got a tablet. So people like that who I've been with the whole time. I'm still with them today.
So, do any of these people that you follow, do they have the same sort of degree that you're trying for?
Oh no. MatPat, the guy who runs the game theory channels, his degree is in neuroscience. There was Phil from
Wait,
Dan
whoa,
and
whoa,
Phil.
whoa, 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 wait a second. You follow a guy who's literally a brain surgeon and he prefers to be on YouTube.
Yes, he is. He
Wow.
he does. He's also a theater kid, so that's really where that started. His theory videos are all based on science. And so that's how I know so much about weird niche science things, because I follow him and I've been following him forever. Similar to that, not brain science, but Phil Lester from Dan and Phil, he has a linguistics degree. So it's all different types of people who, especially when this started, never thought this could be profitable. So you can do anything and still do YouTube is really what that proves.
Well, I remember when you were in junior high and they asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? That typical question that you always get. And I remember there was like a handful of boys in your class that all said they want to be YouTube stars.
Hmm.
So, what exactly does one need to have to be a success in the social media business? Because I don't see too many of your former classmates on the platform right now.
No, that's the interesting thing, because that really is the question. What does it take to be successful? And from genuinely studying this and watching and writing papers, and what I found is that it really, you have to be the right person at the right time and target the right audience. Because as of right now, because it's been, more than a decade this has been going on, but it's still so recent. It's almost like still like it's a baby. We don't know. We cannot say you need to do this to get famous. There are strategies, of course, marketing yourself and being likable and all these things. But there's really nothing that guarantees that you will get 100,000 clicks on a video. Like it's almost left up to chance. You're a victim of the algorithm.
Yeah, but isn't internet fame kind of fickle though? Like
Oh,
it's
yes.
just like you're on thin ice all the time. Like you get people that are super popular and all of a sudden they do or say one stupid thing and suddenly they have no followers and they lose all of their money.
Oh, 100%. Social media as a job, doesn't matter if you're a YouTuber or you work in marketing, you really got to watch yourself. You got to really be in tune with your audience, what they expect from you. You have to say the right thing and be the right thing all of the time. It's a lot of pressure. And sometimes you make mistakes and sometimes you're just not forgiven for them. It's a very, very tricky business.
Okay, well, you kind of touched on advertising and marketing there, and I think largely using social media is advertising and marketing. You got to figure out what you want to say and then figure out how to push it out there. Something I'm still trying to figure out myself. But so the article that you wrote, and the reason that we're kind of talking about this is you talked about advertising and marketing, and you also talked about parasocial relationships. So before we kind of launch into the parasocial relationship thing, I'd like to hear a little bit about your article. Like, what are the main points of the article that you wrote?
So my article was very much about parasocialism, and it targeted every aspect of how a parasocial relationship builds and what it affects. When we talk about marketing, I used, celebrities being in advertisements, right? If Ellen DeGeneres is pushing a certain makeup brand, people who follow Ellen will buy the makeup. And it was really just the effects, like both short term and long term, about what it means to for someone to find themselves in this sort of relationships. They start doing things they don't even realize they're doing, like buying the makeup brand, and suddenly they're buying all the merch and all of these things. I really thought there's a lot more to this than we initially think of, because we think of fandom and we think of parasocial relationships. We start thinking of these people as being quite young, and there's just so much more that goes into it. The effects are more long term than you would typically think.
So what's like we talk about influencers. So is there a difference between an influencer and or does the influencer fit into the parasocial relationship thing? How does that whole dynamic work?
So an influencer is in their job description is to influence an audience to do something. If an influencer themselves builds up this persona or rapport that people really gravitate towards, then they form that parasocial relationship with the audience with this, persona that they put up. They are really key to this whole system. You mentioned Logan Paul, he had a scene in the movie Baywatch, which was cut, but it's still there. It's out there. You can YouTube it. And the whole point of putting him in the movie was to show his audience, oh, hey, come see Baywatch. They're using this parasocial relationship to draw in audiences.
Do you think that bringing him into the wrestling is the same purpose? Or do you think, I mean, I know that he was probably a fan and he always wanted to do it. And I guess he had a door into it because of his fame. But do you think that was smart on the part of WWE to say, yeah, bring this guy in here? He has a jillion followers.
I think it really was. And that was another thing of, knowing your audience. I think a lot of the people who watch Logan and Jake Paul tend to be male and, very masculine. They like wrestling anyway. So it's kind of just drawing, like closing that Venn diagram by bringing them in.
Okay, that's interesting stuff. All right. So, on your side of it, then the influencer or the social media personality, they are engaging in a parasocial relationship with this big unknown mass of people, their
Mhm.
audience. And then the audience can, in return, have a parasocial relationship with the influencer or this perceived friendship or relationship that they have with this. So, are parasocial relationships a bad thing? And if they are, why? And if they aren't, why aren't they bad?
Parasocial relationships are not inherently bad. I think when this really took off, there was a really big concern that they were this horrible thing. You're following this person, you say you like them, you don't even know them. But I think we've kind of taken a step back as we've progressed in this new era of connection, right? Parasocial relationships have always existed, people loving Marilyn Monroe or, the Rat Pack, and they've
Hey,
always
hey, hey, hey,
been.
hey, you don't you talk shit about the Rack Pack.
Oh, I'm not talking shit, but it is true. Loving an actor or a singer is inherently a parasocial relationship, but I think it there was a bit of fear when we got so much more connected, with these people one on one, they're facing a camera and they're talking to you yourself, and it really concerned mostly parents, I think, but since we've gotten more used to it, we've taken away from that fear. And I don't think parasocial relationships are bad. I am actively myself in many parasocial relationships, and I know that. I do think they can become bad at a certain point. When a person really believes they know an influencer or an actor, and they start harassing them, sending stuff to their house, stalking, watching, that is when it becomes negative. But parasocial relationships by themselves, I think they can be a little bit healthy, especially if you like this YouTuber and you hear someone else talking about them. It's like, you like that YouTuber? I like that YouTuber. And you can start forming a community. I think that's a good thing.
So that's the dynamic with influencers and their audience.
Mhm.
Now, where the whole article tweaked me was not necessarily the angle that you took, but it's the angle that I, as a old guy, see on social media now, and especially on platforms like Facebook where you're interacting with other people. So, do you think the parasocial relationship thing extends to those social media platforms where you have friends lists? See, I think that it does. And I think that we're all kind of guilty of projecting kind of what we want that person to be based on the things that are coming out of the screen, even though we don't know them at all. So, in your studies or even in your experience, what about the parasocial relationships we have with other people that are way more accessible to us through Facebook, for example?
Well, yeah, that is also a parasocial relationship, you having a connection with this person and projecting this image of them, even just being friends on Facebook, someone you don't know, oh, I followed them, oh, they followed me back. That is almost a parasocial relationship in a very minute degree that we see now compared to, other ones. Much like I said before, unless it goes into harassment and stalking territory, just being friends with someone on Facebook you don't really know, I don't think is very harmful.
Well, okay, but if I decide that I don't like somebody anymore, which, you know me, it happens all the time, nothing's damaged there. Like, I don't lose income, I don't lose reputation, I don't lose really anything if I hit the block button. So, what's the main difference here is if I'm not depending on this as part of my income stream, is this where we start to see like the ghosting thing and is that as damaging? Do you think in that online community to do the ghost, like you form this bond with this person and all of a sudden they just ghost you out of nowhere?
I think that's less so. I think ghosting is hurtful. It's depending on who you're talking to, right? If you've been talking to this person for a long time, that's less of a parasocial relationship. You've been getting that back and forth and you've built a real relationship on it, and then to ghost, That's,
Oh, wait a second though. Have you built a real one, or have you built a real relationship with the person that is projecting what they want to be online? Because 9 times out of 10, you're not getting the real person. So who are you building that relationship with? So,
that's the scary question now.
and I say that because I've met people I know online in real life, and they turned out to be total douchebags,
Mm.
right? But I expected more from them. So as a Satanist, we call that the satanic sin of solipsism, expecting everybody to think and be the way that I am or that I expect them to be. Big mistake. Who are we actually having that relationship with?
You are definitely having that relationship with this idea of the person they're trying to put out there. So, for sure, to some extent, it can be parasocial, but it kind of leaves that realm a little bit because, the difference is you're getting a back and forth. Whereas if you really like an actor, they don't know who you are at all. You have no connection with them, period. So, in a way, yes, but compared to the grander scale, it's not quite the same.
Okay, so we'll leave that for just a second and just go more into the social media thing because it's a real double-edged sword. Now, apparently, whether you're an influencer trying to make money or whether you're just a regular schmuck who has friends online, that play that we saw a couple of years ago where that person caught in a lie on social media ended up killing herself. And that had a really profound effect on me because I didn't think it was such a serious thing, and I remember we talked about it after and you went, no, this happens all the time. So like
Yes.
you have that damage or that reputation ruining from it. And then you have also the other side, the possibility of the fame that comes with it taking off. So where's the line? For example, my former boss said to me, you can be anonymous or you can be notorious. So where's the line between anonymous and notorious on social media?
It's interesting to say that they can be one in the same. There have been a couple, take TikTok for example. There have been a couple of accounts where people, I see you grimace when I say TikTok, but it it is a very good example. There have been accounts that have taken off despite no person being in them. It's just a black screen with some text on it. The person remains anonymous but gets their opinion out into the world. And in terms of, taking this fame and also being, almost universally hated after saying a bad take, those can totally mesh together. You can be famous and still be hated, and sometimes even get more famous from being hated. So and then people build this parasocial relationship with you based on hate instead of admiration. There almost is no line because they can be so blended together.
So in social media, there's no such thing as bad press.
Unfortunately, not.
So what about this kid in this play who had so much pressure, that she ended up taking her own life? Because I think that was based on a real life scenario.
They changed it a little bit to fit the format of where we lived. They kind of took some creative liberties, but unfortunately, with a situation like that, cyberbullying, bullying, harassment, it doesn't matter where it comes from. The effect is overall the same.
There's so many doors that open talking about this because
Hmm.
the internet is just a doorway to all kinds of stupid shit, isn't it? Like cyberbullying. Another show, obviously another show. But what would you say to people who think they might be in a parasocial relationship on either side? So are there any things that people should look out for? Are there any red flags? What do you look for in terms of either side of it? Do you notice that you're doing things that you wouldn't, or do you have people kind of interacting with you in a way that you're like, oh, geez, this is kind of going somewhere I don't want it to go?
In terms of being on the audience side of a parasocial relationship, I do things that I think if I was not in a fandom or not a follower, I think is ridiculous. Why am I buying merch from two random British men? That's ridiculous. Why would I want a sweater made by two guys who play video games? And yeah, that's how you're really a part of it. On the other side of it, I do post TikToks and I have a very, very small following, but that hasn't stopped people from coming into my message requests and saying weird things. So I'd say for both sides, you have to be very vigilant of how you're interacting with, either the source of the parasocial relationship on the audience side or the effects of putting yourself out there on the internet, from the posters side. You have to be careful, keep your information safe, and just be aware of what you're doing. Again, it's not inherently bad, but in this day and age where you can be doxxed and hacked and all of these things, you just have to know that you are actively participating in a parasocial relationship, in fandom culture, and know that there are risks associated with that from both sides.
This could go on for hours and probably will, with a lot more name calling and hurt feelings outside of the airtime. But just moving on from that, just to kind of wrap this up, you're an actress, you're a singer, you've got your fingers in all kinds of pie. So, just kind of curious as to where we can find you. You say you have a TikTok. You never let me see any of them, so I have
And you
no
never
idea.
will.
I don't know what's on there. But, if somebody wants to give you a like and a follow, where can they find you to do that? And, more for me than for the listening audience, what's your long-term goal after you graduate besides moving out of my house so I can have your room?
I would love to move out of your house. I really would. I would love to work for a YouTuber or for Netflix, running their PR or advertisement section, ideally completely online, a remote job. So in person, I could do theater and I could go act and all of these things. I did have a movie that just came out, which is very exciting. It's called Dreams. It's an adaptation of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dreams that will at some point be going on the High Five Freddy and Friends YouTube channel. So that's very exciting. I'm just going to keep chugging along, doing my schoolwork, getting stuff done.
So where can we find you on TikTok or Instagram? What are your social media handles?
Instagram would be all lowercase, AJ2_Ashford, and TikTok will be AJ.Ashford over there.
Okay. Well, you know what? This was nowhere near as terrifying as I thought it would be. You're very
I'm a delight to talk to.
Okay. Well, there goes the rest of the nice things I was going to say, but
putting it out there for the listeners, I'm a joy.
You're a real pip. Thanks a lot. So again, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it, and I'm glad we didn't melt down into one of our usual heated discussions. And should this kind of thing ever come up again, or if we come up with more stuff on the internet, on social media, would love to have you back to do a one-on-one or maybe as part of a panel. So, I know where to find you.
Yeah, I would love to. So that's awesome.
All right. Until the next time we talk. Hail
Bye.
Satan. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and a huge thank you to our guests and all of you for joining us today. Please drop a like or comment down below. For questions or comments, you can email me directly at information@neutralwisdom.ca. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. A like and subscribe go a long way in getting this podcast out there. Check me out on Facebook under Robert Shirley, and check out Instagram at @neutral_wisdom. And be sure to visit the website at neutralwisdom.ca. And don't forget, Neutral Wisdom, Contemplations of a Satanic Warlock, now available at Amazon in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle formats. Until next time, ever forward.
You have been listening to the Neutral Wisdom Podcast. For more information, email us at information@neutralwisdom.ca, Facebook under Robert Shirley, or Instagram at neutral_wisdom. Also, check out our website at neutralwisdom.ca. Program copyrighted 2026, Devilish Gentleman Enterprises.